All right. This is one of my hot topics right now. Tips to change your body composition. So, for my female athletes, if you're over age 40, we need to do some changing in how we fuel and train to improve our lean body mass and lower fat mass. So, talk about what to eat, when to eat, how to train as we age, how to match your fueling and training, and what I call the holistic method approach to improving the aging process. So, just to give you a quick rundown of myself, I've been in the health and fitness space for more than 25 years. I have played different roles as a personal trainer and a coach for many, many years. And then last few years, been focusing on more of a practitioner, health investigator, and putting that all together because the reason I became a nutritional therapy practitioner and then a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, where we can order functional labs and investigate what is going on from the inside out, is because as a personal trainer, you can't just exercise by itself and train clients lifting weights and doing core work, whatever the workout is for that person, and just expect them to get all the results they want. You need to work on what I call the holistic method, the sleep and the nutrition and the stress management and everything else. Now, I also got into learning more about genetics, and I do have the Wild Health certification to start doing soon. I just finished Dr. Stacy Sims' menopause course and actually need to take that test. And I did the New Leaf metabolic testing years ago and just purchased Pinoy metabolic testing and did their metabolic expert exam. And then before that, I did Bob Seabor's metabolic efficiency coach years ago. So I'm in this space for a long time as a coach, as a trainer, but also as an athlete. And I love endurance sports. I love to be outside. We moved from Bellevue, Washington in the middle of the pandemic, June 2020, and we moved to North San Diego. And I have beautiful hilltop backyard and surrounded by hills and looking out through Rancho Santa Fe to Solana Beach is the ocean somewhere over there. But I moved to improve the quality of life because I broke myself down, owning my own fitness studio, training for Ironmans, teaching classes. I burned the candle at both ends. So I wrote a book, Life is on a Race, to explain what happened to me because I felt like people were looking at me that I was fat and lazy and odd because I went from top age group athlete and gained 30 pounds in 3 months. And I just did my best Ironman Hawaii in 2012, which is so long ago now, but I'm just never really focused on it until recently. And suddenly it's my 10-year anniversary of March 2013, getting the signs and symptoms of what I call adrenal exhaustion, or we can say metabolic chaos. And I struggled. There's a lot of practitioners. I just listened to my friend Amy Horniman talk about this in a podcast, Ben Greenfield, that I was trying to get answers. I was just doing my best times in Ironman Canada and 70.3 worlds and Ironman Hawaii and marathons. And I was doing a lot of races, a lot of endurance events. And I was 42. So my hormones were probably dropping down. My cortisol probably was up for years. And I had low cortisol and just this whole downhill spiral domino effect of things that went wrong with my body until that signs and symptoms just shoved up in my face in March 2013 when I could not do anything. So I went to see many doctors over the next year to 2 years, and I wanted results. I wanted a quick fix. I wanted someone to say, this is what's wrong with you. Take this and you can continue on and your race schedule. I was trying to, I did really well in 2012 for myself in races, and I had goals to beat those times in 2013, and that didn't work. So I thought, oh, I read adrenal fatigue. You can get better in a couple months, and 6 months, adrenal exhaustion. And here I am 10 years later, still not able to race. So I am on a mission. I feel that it's my purpose to help educate you high performers who are trying to do too much of everything and teach us that less is more. And for the female athlete in today's conversation about how we don't need as much long, slow distance cardio. We already have a lot of stress in our life. and we can't tolerate it as well as men. And as our hormones get lower, we're less resilient. And I think it's really important to take the information we have heard from the research Dr. Stacy Sims has brought out to share that women are not small men and we need to do things differently. So the old me, what I learned the past few years, more is not better. You'll hear me say that. Less is more. Too much of anything is toxic. Too little of anything can lead to deficiencies. Genetics, like why did I have a burnout breakdown in my body systems when I know it's Ironman Hawaii this weekend and my friend Diana Hassel is still racing? She's a couple years older than me and she kicks butt and wins her age group or top 3 every year for like 20 years and does amazing. But why does she get to do all this and not me? Why am I less resistant to stress and doing too much of everything? Why am I not as strong? Well, genetics. And then also we're all different. Our lifestyle is different. And my job was a lot to me. My fitness studio was a lot of stress. And then I was teaching classes and I was stressed out all day, every day, because I had the pressure of building this fitness studio and paying rent and paying myself. And it was not good. For 10 years, I did that. So chronic anything doesn't lead to positive ending. Chronic fatigue can be from hypothalamus to pituitary to adrenal axis, which is going to affect your thyroid as well, the HPT and ovaries, gonads. The H is hypothalamus to the pituitary gland, talks to the adrenals, the ovaries, gonads, and the adrenals. So, stress is on, everything's out of balance. Cell danger response is talking about mitochondria and how our body knows what to do to protect ourselves, put everything else on hold. Hormones, gut health, everything we get collected to metabolic chaos. So lots of questions to dive into. What are some common changes? Well, what are you experiencing? You can tell me. I know myself as I'm 51 and I started seeing these changes, I think 10 years ago when I got my signs and symptoms of metabolic chaos, adrenal exhaustion, fat weight gain, lean body mass loss, inflammation, you feel puffy, lack of muscle strength, you feel weak, soft, lack of speed, and just sluggish and slow, lack of power. I just don't have the ability to just get up and go all out. Sprints are hard. So there's changes. But instead of blaming the aging process, I'm really a big believer of embracing the aging process and just change how we need to train. As Dr. Stacy Sims says, work with what we can do without the estrogen progesterone, that the roles that estrogen played before, we can make up for it in different ways. We don't have to suffer and be soft and squishy and inflamed and a big blob. We have lower estrogen progesterone and we have loss of those estrogen receptors. We're not seeing the same. We might have a less diverse microbiome, and our body composition, as I'm trying to focus on today, is increasing fat mass and loss of lean body mass. There's more brain fog. You might have struggled to remember things. And vasomotor symptoms, I haven't fortunately have to deal with that. People have night sweats or just hot sweats, flashes, whatever in the daytime. And then, of course, we hear this all the time as you age, you're going to lose bone mineral density. You're going to get osteoporosis, lack of estrogen, you're going to have bone issues. So you can look up online. There's tons of roles that estrogen plays, metabolic changes, shift in the fat distribution. We have maybe more central visceral fat. Our appetite might change. Lower estrogen levels can lead to changes in hunger and satiety signals. Loss of lean body mass, because estrogen helps the lean body mass we'll talk about today. Lower estrogen, we might have a lower in basal metabolic rate, which is the number of calories burned at rest. And this is what I'm testing on clients here locally. If you want to come to North San Diego, and let's test and assess your metabolism and figure out how to improve it, which we'll talk about some of that today. Physical activity changes, menopause, other signs and symptoms of hormonal changes. Is it adrenals? Is it low energy availability? Or is it menopause that you might feel lack of energy, fatigue, joint pain, inflammation? So the big thing that I've been fascinating by, like, why am I getting this extra fat? I'm storing more fat, but I'm not doing anything different. I'm focusing on nutrition. I've been trying to experiment with eating more and not fasting as much because I was concerned that I was one of the people, LEA, low energy availability. And I think that's something to look at that, all right, am I eating enough? And then talking to Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, I met her in right before the pandemic in February 2020. We did our nutritional therapy conference and she spoke, and Cynthia Thurlow and Dr. Anna, and got to be friends and really changed my mindset that keto is high fat. But what about protein? Are you prioritizing protein? Because as we age, hormones are built from cholesterol, steroid hormones, built from triglycerides, essential fats. But what about the protein? What about the lack of muscle strength? What do we lose as we get older? So we need to make sure we're not just eating a bunch of fat and switch our mindset to getting healthy fat, but getting it through eating more protein and hitting those protein goals spread out throughout the day, those doses, 30 to 40 to 50 grams max, 3 times a day, spaced out. So we can have that muscle protein synthesis stimulated. All right, so we have this change in lipid means fat. So fat uptake, the changes in fat uptake and metabolism can impact the ability as we get through this transition phase in life, when we have lower progesterone and estrogen, our ability to use fat for fuel during exercise changes a little bit. Estrogen and progesterone play a role that regulate various aspects of our fat metabolism or oxidation, and they decline during menopause, but have several implications for energy utilization during activity. So this is what I asked Dr. Stacy Sims, and I did this in a previous podcast. Why? Why am I storing fat and how do I use it? This zone 2 long, slow distance used to always work to burn fat, and it doesn't anymore. We need to do what we'll talk about the zone 4, zone 5 interval training with zone 1 recovery training. Stay there until you're ready to go again. So we've reduced lipid oxidation. So we have a loss of oxidizing fat. So estrogen promotes the use of fats as an energy source during exercise. So what happens when we don't have estrogen? Estrogen isn't there anymore to help use fat as energy during exercise. So when estrogen levels decrease during our transitional menopausal time of life, the body may become less efficient at oxidizing or burning fats, fatty acids, for energy. As a result, the menopausal aging female athlete may experience the reduced ability to rely on stored fat as a primary energy source during exercise. So we don't have the ability, lack of estrogen. So now we'll talk about in a bit how Stacy Sims talks about to improve lipid uptake is via the HIIT and the sit training. So we have this reduced ability to store. We have a reduced ability to rely on stored fat for energy. So we used to be able to burn fat and be fat burners, staying in zone 2 for hours. But now we have more glucose imbalance and other things going on with our lower estrogen. Increased carbohydrate utilization. So with lower estrogen and progesterone, the body may shift towards greater reliance on carbohydrates for energy during exercise. Carbohydrates are stored as glycogen in the muscles and liver and can be more quickly mobilized for energy compared to stored fats. This shift can affect exercise performance, and especially during prolonged or endurance activities, as glycogen stores are limited. So that's why we've been talking in other episodes that we, female athletes with lower estrogen and progesterone, we may benefit of burning more fat by adding in carbohydrates, even though it's so backwards that we think we're trained as these fat adapted low carb athletes, but we may benefit in burning more fat, increasing lipid uptake to be used and removed by the cells for energy, if we have a small dose of carbohydrates during those longer workouts. So, and ideally real food sources versus gels and bars and processed foods and refined sugars. So the impact on endurance, this lower estrogen levels can affect endurance performance by limiting the body's ability to spare glycogen and rely on fat oxidation. Athletes may experience earlier fatigue during long duration activities due to decrease in fat metabolism. So what do we do about it? Because of the lower estrogens, we have ability to, we don't have that dependency on fat oxidation. Body's ability to spare glycogen and rely on fat is not there anymore. So we have increased fat storage. The reduction in estrogen levels during menopause can lead to increase in visceral fat storage. Mine's in my thighs. Visceral fat is associated with insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction, which is why I wish everyone would ask their doctor to get their insulin measured or go to Own Your Own Labs or Ulta Labs and get it for $11. You don't know if you're insulin resistant if you don't get it tested. The body may prioritize storing fat rather than efficiently using it for energy during exercise. Bummer. Hormone variability. It's important to note that individual responses of hormonal change during this transitional period of time will vary. Some athletes, female athletes, may be well adapted to these changes and maintain their ability to use fat for fuel during exercise, while others may experience significant disruptions in their energy metabolism. That would be me. That's why I'm researching this, because this is me. So focus on what you need. We have the loss of estrogen and the loss of progesterone, but I'm not in menopause. I'm still perimenopause, but I'm preparing because your body, this happens perimenopause 10 years before you hit that one day in time menopause, and then you're in postmenopause. So one thing that Dr. Stacy Sims says is that we need to send the signal to building and maintaining muscle mass, lean body mass. We want to increase lean tissue and lower fat. The focus should be on strength, because this is the biggest thing we lose as we age with the loss of estrogen, or E2 if you get your Dutch test. And you ask me how to order labs through Rupa Health, and they can come to your house and you pay them directly. Now, hypertrophy is a type of lifting higher reps that doesn't work on what we need. So doing the 10, 12, 15 repetitions is not going to change your body composition as compared to strength by doing the 3 to 6 repetitions. I can't do another rep at 6, even going down to that you can only lift 1 rep, because we need increase in power production, strength, metabolic rate, metabolic efficiency, which I test with Pinoy. Remember, metabolic rate, metabolic efficiency is what I'm doing, testing and not guessing. Joint strength, joint stability, bone mineral density, and immune system can be all improved by doing strength training. But what are some mistakes people are doing? What do you think? If you want to change your body composition, you're trying to burn more fat. I see it at the gym. I go into this new gym called Shoes, and you see people on the cardio machines. They're there for a long time, barely moving, or they're working too hard. They're working too hard to be easy and too easy to be hard. They're doing the same thing every day. And then when I see people lift weights, they're also doing very light weight and way too many repetitions. They're spending all that time in the gym and they're not going to get much to change their body composition. So the other thing is low energy availability. And a lot of us, including myself for a long time, years, I was doing fasted exercise until this past year. I started adding some butter and salt to my coffee and not being afraid of creamer, organic heavy cream. But this whole thing I've talked about last 3 years, fasted or eating fed exercise. If you are already exercising, fasting, the benefits for cell autophagy is not beneficial for the fit and active female athlete. We are already getting the benefits of cell autophagy with exercise. And you can look up Rob Wolf's interview video he did 3 years ago on this. If you're a woman who's adding athletics, workouts on top of intermittent fasting, Stacy Sims has a great article on this that you may be impacting your performance and your health. It's this hormone called kisspeptin I've talked about before. It's a neuropeptide. It's responsible for sex hormones, endocrine, and reproductive function. And it also plays a big role in maintaining healthy glucose levels, appetite regulation, and body composition. And it's more sensitive in women than men. So when the kisspeptin hormone gets a little perturbed, our sex hormones are not produced as they should, and they're not released in the way they need to be. So intermittent fasting, excessive fasting with exercise on top of that, and doing too strict of keto or too low carbohydrate for the fit active woman disrupts kisspeptin production. And then she talks about when our brain perceives we have a deficiency in nutrients, especially she says is carbohydrates, I would say protein, but listening to this fat oxidation issue, we have the need for a little more carbs to burn fat. We have a marked reduction in kisspeptin stimulation, which does not only increase our appetite, but also reduces our sensitivity to insulin. So this is why research shows that intermittent fasting is more likely to cause impaired glucose intolerance in women and not men. So find drstacysims.com blog. You are an athlete. You shouldn't practice intermittent fasting. Interesting article, I must say. She also talks about low energy availability. So when the errors we make are probably exercising more, eating less, and this leads to low energy availability. And that, again, will lead to issues and probably thyroid dysfunction. So the low energy availability can relate to menstrual issues, low libido, GI, cardiovascular dysfunction, compromised bone health, big list of things. So you can look up low energy availability. Some more on kisspeptin hormone, fasting, nutrition, exercise. So you can look that up. Kisspeptin hormone plays a crucial role in reproductive functions in the body. I just find this so interesting because we hear all the benefits for fasting, but I keep trying to tell you guys what I'm bringing to this show is to be the fit and healthy, active athlete. We are not metabolically damaged and having metabolic syndrome, where other influencers in this fasting space and low carb, keto, carnivore, they're not talking to someone that is exercising as a triathlete or endurance athlete that's putting in a lot of exercise. And I think it's still different than someone that's doing more of a bodybuilding workout. Yeah, you don't need the carbs. But for females, maybe they do to improve fat. And then if you're doing endurance exercise, that's what I'm talking about. If you're doing a lot of endurance exercise. So lots of information on fasting in active females. So stress hormones, cortisol can rise higher, keep increasing the stress and keeps us in sympathetic drive and reduces our ability to relax, which probably happened to me. Your thyroid activity is depressed, and this messes with your menstrual cycle, and your body wants to store belly fat. When we have higher anxiety and stress, we have impaired performance, and then often the weight gain. So kind of backfires. So doing too much fasting with exercise can just not work for some of us. I think some people it does, but the stress hormones like cortisol, we have to watch out. So struggling with unexplained weight gain, kind of going back to the focus on the body comp changes here. We need to do resistance strength, heavy weightlifting as our hormones change. And what I love Dr. Stacy Sims teaches in her course, that we need to get a strong contraction. So the focus is on building strength. We're not going to get big and bulky. The hypertrophy workouts do not increase the muscle fibers that we need and nervous system that we need to do to make up for the lack of estrogen levels. So as we strive to live our best life in our second half of our life, as I do, we want to look at how we're training and how we're fueling to improve our body composition, metabolic health, performance, longevity. So neuromuscularly, we need to do the lifting of heavy stuff and works on the speed and the strength of muscle contraction. So we have changes in the myosin, the muscle contraction, with a lack of estrogen and estradiol sites. So back to this lipid uptake, I would look into it a little bit more. So increasing lipid uptake into the muscles to improve fat loss in postmenopause involves optimizing exercise strategies that enhance metabolic efficiency, so you're burning more fat, and promote favorable changes in body composition. Because remember, during our transitional years, estrogen levels lower, lead to shift in fat distribution, more fat being stored. So we have an increased rate of lipid uptake into the abdominal adipose tissue, fat tissue. And this shift may contribute an increased risk of metabolic issues as insulin resistance, cardiovascular disease. So test and not guess your insulin and really focus on exercise and the right nutrition. Real food, nutrient-dense food. So we want to use heavy weights, add in HIIT training when appropriate, and the sprint interval training, and throw in some plyometrics a few times a week. Resistance training can help with the changes, the body composition changes we're looking for with their lower hormones. So let me finish with this. Dr. Stacy Sims, I said this in a couple episodes now, why we need higher intensity intervals over the long, slow distance. So as we get older, we see changes in lipid turnover, which means we have changes in how our body uses fat and changes in how we store body fat. So we're not using fat the same way anymore, so we can't do that zone 2 and burn as much fat. And we're storing more body fat to keep it on hand when we need it. So this changes our body composition. As we age, the weight, the fat loss, was impacted in changes of our fat removal. So to lose weight, it's not about burning more fat as we used to in that zone 2. It's not about using fat as fuel as we did in zone 2. But what we need to do is change the rate of fat uptake into the fat tissue. And I have typos on these slides. I see that. So we have we need to change the rate of how we get fat uptake into the tissue. So we have this decreased amount of fat that's using by the body. But as we age, we have increased amount of, and we want to use it because we have this dysregulation of metabolism Stacy talks about. We're not able to pull the glucose into the muscle itself. So the body focuses energy. We want it to build muscle. We want it to focus on, yes, let's get some strength training and get some HIIT training. But it thinks it needs to hold on to that fat fuel. So it stores more fat. So we need to create different signals to increase the fat uptake into the muscle cell and the fat tissue. We want to increase that fat usage into the cell for energy and remove it so we're not storing. But we have this increased fat storage because we now have increased need for fat because we don't have that glucose. We're not able to pull that carbohydrate glucose into the cell by itself. We need help. That's why we need to do the HIIT training and the sit training, which is sprint interval training, 10, 30 seconds all out. So that sprint interval training improves the fast twitch muscle fibers in that top end zone 5 metabolic anaerobic capacity and helps the muscles increase glucose uptake without the need of insulin. So I'm not going to get into gut health, but that's an important part of our hormones and stress. But I want to finish up that getting nutrient-dense whole foods, base hits, just keep it simple. Less is more. So to burn fat, we want to improve fat uptake. And to do that, we don't need all the long, slow distance stuff. We need to not overtrain, but you need that Goldilocks effect, the right amount of workouts that are shorter in duration, 20 minutes, warm up, cool down. It takes you 45 minutes and 20 minutes, maybe the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, your workout involves sprints. If it's every 2 minutes on the minute, you're doing 20 seconds all out and then recover for a minute, 40 seconds. Maybe you're doing 20-second hill repeats out on the road or your bike, and then you recover on the downhill. So we have to change how we train instead of doing all this long, slow zone 2 stuff that I've talked about forever, the Maffetone type. But if you're struggling as myself, not having changes in your body composition, that even though I'm lifting weights, I need to do more interval training, plyometrics within around my strength training workout and work on my nutrition before and afterwards, prioritize the protein. 30 minutes post-workout, hit that 20, 30 grams, which is hard because I'm not hungry. So I was taking essential amino acids, but 7 capsules of ketone aminos is only 5 grams of protein. So I'm not going to take 7 capsules times 4. That's a lot. So changing how we structure our workouts each week, and then weekends, our long, slow distance bike ride, our long, slow distance run, maybe that's okay. We might need to have more adaptogens, ashwagandha, mushroom adaptogens in your coffee, and have some support of your adrenals and help get your body back in the parasympathetic nervous system by getting some food in you post-workout and not raising cortisol. As a long, slow distance causes more stress, increases cortisol, increases glucose, which increases insulin. And we're more insulin resistant. So we want to get nutrient-dense whole foods, regular exercise, stress management, prioritize your sleep, and get some good nutrition through your, I like more animal-based diet, but if you're a vegetarian, you have to really be creative of getting the essential amino acids and getting all 9 aminos to get that glycine. At nighttime is good glycine for sleep, and then post-workout, you want the leucine 2.5 to 3 point something in that profile. So nutrient timing, we could talk about next time a little more about what we learn, how to fuel for our workouts and signal the body to repair what happened. We want to talk about avoiding being in a catabolic state, and that we want to get building is anabolic post-workout. That's why we want to get that protein in and get out of catabolic breakdown state. So pre-workout, having some protein, maybe some carbs if you're doing anaerobic workout, post-workout, hitting the protein and maybe some carbs. So we want to enhance muscle protein synthesis, avoid low energy availability. We want to prioritize protein spread out throughout the day, get our healthy fats, feed our hormones. What does that look like? And hormesis. So lots more to go into on upcoming seminar. We'll do this again, but testing and not guessing, figure out what nutrients you need, building muscle. The long, slow endurance training does not help us with the changes and the challenges as we age. It is not beneficial for us to change body composition, improving bone mineral density to long, slow distance and blood sugar control. So we have done the long, slow distance forever, and we're good at that. But now we need to learn how to fuel and train to improve performance. So this is a good summary to end on. Prioritizing heavy weights, combination of hip finisher, plyometrics, get around that high neuromuscular response, a fast muscle contraction with the bone building stimulus from plyometrics, as I did speed skaters and box jumps and rope slams. Less is more for the aging endurance athletes. Stacy Sims talks about that we're born to be efficient as long, slow distance endurance zone 2 type of athletes. But this point in our life, we may gain more benefits by doing less volume. And I am doing that myself and finally seeing some changes. Adding in heavy weights, HIIT, sit, and plyometrics, neuromuscular contraction, the stimulus to increase bone mineral density. We need that combination of the heavy weights, the sprints, and the plyometrics to improve insulin sensitivity. And we want to change that body composition. So working on getting aerobic exercise, maybe once a week, and then HIIT training within a warm up and warm down 3 times a week, and the resistance training 2 to 4 days a week. So, how to improve your fat metabolism, look at the holistic method, learn more from Dr. Stacy Sims, and stop blaming the aging process. We want to work on changing how we train, quality over quantity, adding in the right dose of protein throughout the day, the right type of workouts, the right type of HIIT or sit training, and focus on recovering in between the workouts. Train hard, recover harder. Working out at home, you can do a lot of stuff. But let's get some metabolic testing and learn more. So that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions and if you want to come North San Diego to do the metabolic testing, I'm doing Pinot metabolic testing. Put that in with my nutritional therapy assessment. Put it in with the holistic method approach and work on your VO2 max and figure out your zoning, breath analysis, stress, and measure all these markers. So hopefully that helps you out and figure out where you can learn more and get healthier as you age. Thanks, guys.